Welcome to the Double Jump Podcast, where we play games and we try to have fun. And this is another very special episode because we are continuing our Kingdom Hearts series playthrough where we collaborate with ourselves and our YouTube channel, The Socket, where we try to rank every game ever made from best to worst. And this is the third Kingdom Hearts Socket we're doing. This is for Kingdom Hearts 2. We have the usual crew. We have Christian.
Hi.
And we have our JRPG consultant, Michael.
Hello. Just crunching some JRPG numbers here.
Okay, thank you. You got your little visor and you got your little banker's light going. I can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. This, I think, will be the most significant Kingdom Hearts socket we do. It feels like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys get that impression?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So no pressure going in here, but
Okay.
So starting off here, I guess I just want to ask you guys what this game represents to you, either personally, because I know, Christian, you have a much different background with this game than me or Michael, or just what it means like for the series to you. So, Christian, take it away.
Okay. Kingdom Hearts 2 to me is a game that I love and have a lot of nostalgia wrapped up in. I got it as a young child on the PS2. It was one of my first 5 PS2 games. And I stayed up all night and played it and did not stop. And I didn't understand anything that was happening. But I loved it for the action RPG combat. And now, coming back to it with fresh eyes, I'm able to appreciate some of the overly convoluted and complicated story.
Okay.
And I've come out of it enjoying Kingdom Hearts 2 very thoroughly. Enjoying it more than I enjoy most video games.
Cool. Did you enjoy it? This most recent playthrough, was that, would you say, the most enjoyable playthrough of it you've done?
Yeah, well, my most recent playthrough, most recent full playthrough was on Critical, and so it really smacked me hard. It really smacked me upside the head and, knocked some sense into me. But my most recent 100% playthrough absolutely was incredibly enjoyable.
Okay. Michael, how do you feel?
Can we repeat the question exactly?
Just what does this game represent to you coming off of, because you've only played, like me, you've only played 1 and you've played Rechain. So we're jumping into this game new. What does it kind of represent to you?
I would think a lot of things that are kind of hard to put into words. I feel like this whole game is kind of hard to put into words and summarize and make sense of if you didn't have an initial nostalgia behind it. Or it's because, like the first one, I think it's kind of a convoluted mess.
Okay.
Also, like the first one, I think it's a crazy fever dream of a narrative, and I kind of love that. This is the first time in a long time that I've sat down with another 40-hour game and am pretty confident I'll commit to 100%ing it.
Nice.
And there's a lot of things I like about it. It's what I think is weird to me is just where this goes with all of the strands that were kind of put together in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Yeah.
And then hinted at in Rechain.
Yeah.
Where it's not as though the plot to Kingdom Hearts 1 doesn't matter. It's that this just kind of took everything that went on in that game and ballooned it. Yeah. To some nth absurd degree. I don't know if I'm really answering the question.
It's okay. I'm getting the gist.
Right. It's just it's a big game. It's kind of a convoluted game. I like the first one. I have problems with it, and like the first one, I love this game.
Okay. Just from my perspective, I guess this game represents to me this scary thing because I guess I'm the person here who played 1 but didn't play 2. So talking about 1 was wrapped up, I just mean as a kid. So when we were talking about 1, it was very much this nostalgic look back at this game that I loved as a kid. And Christian, you played 2 before you played 1,
Yeah.
which is bonkers to me. But the prospect of reviewing 2 then is the scary thing where it's like, okay, how much of that is nostalgia?
Yeah.
And I think what was revealed to me is that a lot of that was nostalgia, and that's just my perspective, and we're gonna talk about that. But this was one of the scarier sockets I feel like I've embarked upon, just because it was putting a harsh light on something I think shouldn't have a harsh light put on it, because I think this is a game you play as a kid and then you have fond memories of, and you're able to tap into that as an adult if you want to replay it. But playing it as an adult for the first time is kind of jarring and strange, or it was for me, I guess. So
can I cut in?
Yes.
I did not share that same. Well, I mean, I guess I don't have the same. I don't have that background in Kingdom Hearts 1 as a child to really call on here or really affect that. But I went into this without as what I assume is an adult.
Yeah.
I think I pass off as an
physically
adult sometimes. Yeah, there we go. And
yeah.
I still enjoyed it a lot, even as an adult, even as someone who would look at this critically. And there were moments where I thought this thing needed to be put to sleep, like Old Yeller this game. But
okay.
I still came out of it really, really liking it.
Okay.
A lot.
Okay. And I wanna dive in here, but I feel strange talking about the Roxas stuff to begin with, because I feel like it is an outlier in the experience of playing this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we could get lost in the weeds on the Roxas stuff at the beginning and have that chew up most of the time, but
much like the game itself.
yeah. So I guess I would say we will definitely talk about this Roxas stuff, but let's skip ahead maybe to the Sora stuff and just what were kind of your guys's, or I guess kind of just Michael, because Christian, you have this experience. What was it like coming to 2 and being put back in Sora's shoes? There's a lot of changes to how this game looks, feels, sounds, how it operates. Michael, what was your initial impression of all that stuff?
Sora looked doofy was the first thing I thought.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, after the last one we did the rechain thing, the kids in clown shoes image never really left my mind, and
okay.
Lo and behold. But do you mean like gameplay wise, or are you looking at narrative wise, or the way Sora interacts with all of these worlds and going on fun Disney adventures and singing songs with Little Mermaid? And
I guess if I can cite an example for me, it's when, and this applies to Roxas also, it's just like you start the game and all of a sudden it's like this field of view is insane.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, wow, they went
especially
for it.
Going straight from Rechain of Memories into
Yes.
this. It's
Yes.
like, whoa, who got a hold of the field of view slider?
But that tells you right away this is going to be a different game than 1.
Yes.
It's going to be an action movie. It's going to be crazy. And because 1 starts so innocuously where it's just like, well, I guess that's not true because you have the dive to the heart and all that. But I just mean like you're on an island and it just
but the
feels
dive
like
to the heart is really, it's just a tutorial kind of intro. It's because you're right. It does start very differently. I mean, 1, you're on the island. You're talking with your friends, including your buddy Waka.
Yeah.
And
that was a really good Waka. I like that. It's like a slice of life anime type of thing happening at the beginning.
Right. And this one, I think, pretty early on, even as Roxas, where it does kind of start on a quieter note, it does feel as though things are bigger. Things are that you've gone the action movie route.
Yeah.
Like you were saying. It does seem like they're setting you up for something that's a little less, I would even say like a little less of a Sora story and more of a, well, now we're going to flesh out this crazy, stupid, mega Disney, but not Disney world.
Right.
And you're just in it.
Right. Like they can cut to other characters and it doesn't just feel like this little side thing. It's like, oh, this is part of the story that's unfolding.
Right.
in 1, I feel like they didn't do that as much, except for like Riku with the yeah.
They would do a couple of Riku cuts, but
yeah.
No, and a couple. I think they did a couple where Maleficent was plotting, but
yeah, same here.
But no, they definitely added a lot. It does feel as though they've stepped back, and now it's less about this kid who's the chosen one, and more about, well, now we're in this large world, and there's more bad guys, and you're going to see them all up front, and there's all this lore, and Ansem's not Ansem, but I don't know, things like that.
To the extent that they are comfortable having the first 3 hours of this game be Roxas and not Sora, and not even give you like a little Sora and then Roxas. It's just like it's Roxas. Let's just talk about Roxas, you guys. So, Christian, please recount, because I love just this idea of you getting Kingdom Hearts 2 and it being your first Kingdom Hearts game, and then you're playing as Roxas. That's amazing to me.
As far as I was concerned, Roxas was the main character, because I had no idea. It's just some blonde boy, and I'm running around Twilight Town. I'm finding some pictures and figuring out why they're all getting stolen.
That's right. And then the word gets stolen.
And the word gets stolen too, which is stupid.
That's cool.
Oh, that's right. What word was taken? I don't remember.
Picture,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah, because it's supposed to be like they stole something, but then no, they took your picture. That's anime.
But yeah, it's weird looking at the game through that lens, because my first experience with it was just enjoying playing as this character, and it was a character I assumed had some fleshing out or backstory in Kingdom Hearts 1 as someone who just played 2, but I didn't really care because I was just having fun with the action RPG stuff that was happening. Whereas I believe Nomura's actual intent was to have the player be very confused. And I wasn't. I just got through it, and then I was like, okay, I'm playing as Sora now, or a different character. That's cool. Donald and Goofy are here.
That's fair, yeah. It's just...
So Nomura was going for that kind of early disorientation?
Yeah, I believe his initial intent was to set Kingdom Hearts 2 a year after Kingdom Hearts 1, and then just not explain what happened in between, to allow the player to feel confused and have a sense of mystery and intrigue by trying to figure out what happened in that gap.
Okay.
Interesting.
What a dick.
Yep.
I don't know. I like that. I think that's an okay idea if you do it right.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Christian, I would just like to know, how do you feel this compares to Metal Gear Solid 2? Like, how do you feel they pull this off? Because it's kind of the inverse.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, where 2 lulls you into a false sense of security and then, like, upends all that. And then Kingdom Hearts 2, like, upends everything and then goes back
to
what you were expecting. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like from a conceptual standpoint, Metal Gear Solid 2 is definitely way more ballsy, way more interesting as a finished product.
Yeah.
Looking back on it in retrospect. But as, we want to see what happens with Sora's story.
Yeah.
So, but I guess that was the case in Metal Gear Solid 2 as well. So, I mean, it's just less gutsy of a move to just go back to Sora, but I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I don't know if the stage is the same. I don't know if it's the same there, because I haven't played Metal Gear Solid 2, but my understanding is that Metal Gear Solid 1 didn't really leave you in this situation where, okay, what's next for Snake?
Yeah.
While Kingdom Hearts 1 left off with Sora running in a meadow to some future because Pluto had a letter in his mouth, and
exactly, yeah.
Like they set it up to have a sequel that Sora would have to be heavily involved in, and I don't know if that's the same for MGS2. It might be. Tucker, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't...
Not really. I mean, I think there's this understanding that there's going to be a sequel at some point, but that's a fair point, I guess, yeah, where it's like, Sora's going on another adventure, and then 2 comes out and it's like, Sora's not here.
Yeah.
That is interesting, yeah. I hadn't thought about it like that. Well, I guess, just with this Roxas stuff then, did you guys feel that it was successful? Is this an interesting... beyond like a meta level of, is this interesting that it's this other character? Like, was this first 3 hours meaningful to you guys?
Can I take a stab at this, Christian?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes and no. I think it kind of it wasn't the. I mean, because you knew that you were going to be Sora again. It wasn't.
Yeah,
it's telegraphed on the box art.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
It's not as though it's this huge deception when you start out as Roxas, because you have this hunch that you're not going to. You probably won't be staying Roxas, and I think it didn't help for me because I kind of had a sense of the plot already going in. I already kind of knew where Roxas fit into the equation, who this person was.
Yeah.
I was confused as to whatever the hell was happening. Why are you in a digital computer world as Roxas, and why is Axel here, and why is Diz being like the dog from Silent Hill 2? But
there's two, right? There's a digital and a real.
Yes.
And I had a harder time sorting that out narratively too, because you go back to Twilight Town as Sora, and it's
you
like,
go to
oh, these
both.
are these, yeah, and they're these kids you're supposed to have a connection with there, but do you? Roxas knows them, but do they know Roxas? Or I don't know if that was probably answered, and I probably missed it. But.
Well, yeah. Christian thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's like the digital versions who are aware of him. They're not the real, the real whatever their names were. I totally forgot. That's sad.
They put in like I feel like they put in these little like this little symbology of like there's the trophy with the little gems, and then that comes back up again, and then it's supposed to be like this. It's like they're drawing from this like web of symbolism and stuff, but I just don't feel like it actually does anything for anything. It's just kind of this like world building for a world that isn't actually there type of thing.
Well, I mean, you are world building kind of, but you're not. You're building Roxas, who
disappears.
Kind of.
Yeah.
He's not gone for the whole time. There's always this interaction with the organization where it's like, oh, you're Roxas. No, you're Sora. And I feel like every fight precedes with, hi, Roxas. And it's like, I'm not Roxas, I'm Sora. Who's Roxas? Stop calling me Roxas.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that keeps coming up. And then you eventually have this fight with Roxas,
which is awesome.
Kinda, yeah. And, you have this kind of weird conclusion of Roxas as a character by Kingdom Hearts 2. I mean, I understand there's a lot more with Roxas and like the Kingdom Hearts expanded universe or whatever you want to call the handheld games, but it's less of a world building for the sake of Twilight Town than it is a world building for the sake of one of the plot lines, I guess, major characters.
Yeah, I just feel like Roxas, they do this whole thing and they put all this work into establishing this character, and I just feel like the first 3 hours sets all of these things up that don't actually set up the game for you. It feels like they could take the first 3 hours and put it out as a separate little thing, and then just start 2 where you start with Sora, and it wouldn't really affect too much either of those two chunks.
I might disagree, because I do think that it is in a way that the fact that they established Roxas, and that by the time you do have that fight with Roxas and you have that cutscene afterward, that it does kind of pay off, and that you at least know who this nobody character is, or who this ghost character inside you or whatever.
Yeah.
You at least have a feeling as to who he is, and they make him a character rather than just negative Sora or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I really liked about it, is I felt like I got just enough time with Roxas to kind of understand his plight and to feel emotional once the conclusion to that introduction came. And I feel like that opening is very indicative of the way Nomura likes to write things, where he just kind of hand waves all of the bigger stuff and then focuses on some of the more minute moments. So like, as far as Roxas's situation is concerned, it's just hand wavy. It's a simulation. This is just happening right now. It's kind of digital, but some of it's kind of real. Memories are getting forgotten, and we need Roxas in order to make Sora whole again. I don't know, but the moment that I felt most impactful was right at the end, where he's just enjoying his summer vacation, just this kid, hanging out, enjoying his summer. And it's something that I can relate to as a young kid, when you meet the end of summer and you realize it's all over. But for Roxas, it's not just his summer vacation, but pretty much his life.
Yeah. I feel you on that.
Yeah. So I like that. I appreciated that the introduction was able to engender those emotions within my heartless soul.
Okay, you're nobody.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see what you did there. But I also do think it worked on a disorienting front to some extent. Is the other side of that. I do think it could take you off guard. That you start with a character that isn't actually your main character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then gradually, even in that plotline, you insert some of the weirder Kingdom Hearts stuff, and it kind of eases you into this wider, more nonsensical fantasy action RPG nonsense world.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to reconcile that, okay, this can be a cool meta-narrative section of this game, but also most of what you do is garbage in it, and it's not fun. Or, like, oh, there's was it Struggle? It's like, yeah, here's a whole championship you have to go through, and it's the same thing over and over, and it doesn't have any bearing on anything. And it's part of this
you
3
do
hours.
get to fight Vivi.
Yeah, dude.
I don't like how they treated that character at all.
Vivi.
I like Vivi a lot, but not in this game.
Oh.
Vivi doesn't talk, to my knowledge, but then in this game she's like, it's supposed to be he, but she's like, hey, I'm Vivi, I'm effeminate, and I don't have any role in this other than to be like, I have a doppelganger. It's like, that whole section just kind of washed over me, and I was just like, I'm ready to get to the thing. But then there's that boss fight, which is like, the way that thing moves is crazy.
The big nobody you're talking?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was all worth it.
New enemy type.
It was, yeah. To have that be your introduction to, and the guys who move all cool, they're like dancing. They're like stretching all over the place.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It is. Very organic looking in comparison to like the Heartless, which kind of look more mechanical almost.
I would say the Nobody. I very much like the Nobody's design throughout most of this game.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that did it for me is that it's organic, but also kind of glitchy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like a computer program tried to create life and then sputtered.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Ooh, I like that.
And it's also, I think, a very good. It's how I would have imagined like a science fiction novel's trans-dimensional beings, I guess, because they're kind of warping in and out, and they're kind of changing their shape constantly and pulsating. And I really like what they did with that. That was, at the end of the day, I think the one thing that you can give to Nomura is that he knows how to design some pretty cool, crazy things.
Yeah.
I think the Heartless also are awesome in this game. Like
really cool boss designs.
Yes.
Oh my god. When you get to all those like secondary... when you go back to the Disney worlds and you get the specific Heartless bosses, and it's like the Lion King one's a giant...
Yeah!
it's what is it? It's like a giant earth goat monster with a baboon on top, and that stuff's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I guess because there's the big boss fight with the Nobody, and then after that they throw you at Axel, and that fight sets up, I think, some of the more insane action movie stuff that you're going to see in this. I mean, you're jumping off of walls with 2 keyblades, and
which raises, I think, one of the more important questions here is, how do you guys feel about the reliance on mashing triangle to do cool things in this game?
Here we've come. Reaction commands.
Yeah. I mean, Christian, for you, this would have been just like, oh, this is Kingdom Hearts combat. You just press triangle. And
yeah, you hit triangle to make cool stuff happen most of the time.
I think it sets up some very cool... like this is one of the gripes I have with this game is I feel at moments that at least at some moments they traded actual gameplay for something a little more cinematic and a little more visual heavy. And those visual heavy things are kind of they're bonkers. They're off the wall. It's like they would be things that I would have come up with as like a 12-year-old watching Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean that as a compliment. They're fun. It's cool. You're doing like those kind of duel standoffs, or in the final fight when all the lasers are in the room and you're just jumping around blocking all of those, and it's just this wild mash triangle. I don't know. I think it created some pretty cool visual moments and pretty fun moments from like the way that watching cartoons is fun.
Yeah.
As for a gameplay perspective, I think sometimes it did cut into it, less so at the less so in like the smaller Heartless mob fights, and more so in the boss fights, when those are important for, you know, being able to actually do a lot of damage to the boss. And
yeah.
At times too. Other times I think it meshed in well, and I am torn on it, I guess.
Okay. Well, like for me, I think it kind of ruins, say, the last boss fight, because there's been this trend recently, not recently, but for like the last 10 years, let's say, where a lot of the last bosses in games are very cinematic and don't feel like last bosses. And I don't think that's true necessarily of this one, but I think it feels less like a last boss than the first game.
Oh yeah.
Because in the first game you were slowly fighting your way through this whole ordeal, but it never felt like you were just acting out a cutscene. You were like attacking this giant ship. And in 2, it feels like you are going through a cutscene with small sections of combat in between. And the way I think I can reconcile that in my head is that maybe they never intended this to be actually the last boss, and you're supposed to go fight Sephiroth, and that's an actual boss fight, and there you go, that's your last boss fight if you want it, and this is just a nice wrap-up of the story. Because it has these plot things happening and these character things happening that I don't think you could do in just a normal fight, so it's interesting that they kind of take control away from you, but only in the service of wrapping things up in a nice way that's fulfilling from a character perspective.
I actually thought it kind of hurt the boss fight a lot.
Okay.
To me, it felt as though, especially in the last room, when it is mostly meshing triangle to avoid those like snare attacks he does. Right. And it just becomes this thing where you're like teleporting around the room, like a Saturday morning anime or something. Yeah. And it didn't. I don't think it didn't feel like a good culmination of playing this game. It felt like it tied up the narrative well enough, but no, I do think it impacted it in a way that maybe it doesn't approach that more cinematic boss fight thing that we have today with gaming. Okay. But it comes really it's edging that way for sure. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I do think it leads to a kind of an unsatisfying end in a gameplay way. Because I mean, the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, when you go through the whole Ansem fight, it feels like you're the one, you have agency here, and you're the one destroying this ship, and it's this long marathon of a fight, and you feel good at the end when you beat Ansem. Right. And this one, I don't know if that same... It doesn't feel as good from a gameplay perspective when you win, because so much of it is spent pressing triangle in QuickTime events, or to cut through buildings, or you're on this stupid speeder thing.
Okay. Do you, Michael, feel that part of that has to do with the fact that in 1 there was a very clear antagonist, and then at the end you fight him, whereas in 2 it gets really, really wishy-washy with everything by the end? And then... Because you're fighting like this king, but then the king is a giant building, and then the building becomes Zanahort? Riku? Who are you fighting? Zenmis, of course. Right.
No, maybe. I don't know if that impacted it as much as the actual forms of the boss fight itself.
Okay.
Like Giant Building Dragon
Yeah.
was just kind of like, okay, it's a giant building dragon, and then a huge chunk of this is you're fighting Zenmis, but he's in armor and sitting in a chair.
Right.
It doesn't lend itself to a fun boss battle necessarily.
No. I thought it was okay. You know, I wasn't hating it or anything, but it was just kind of a letdown, I felt like.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Christian, what do you think about
I like
this?
the final boss.
Yeah.
It suffers from something that I believe other games of the era or games since have suffered from, which is introducing new gameplay mechanics in the last battle for some reason.
Okay.
But I think because as a result of that, there's a lot of variety happening. Things are moving at a pretty fast clip, and you're going from like phase to phase of the boss pretty quickly. So, and the cool factor is awesome. Like you're starting out slashing through buildings on your way towards this like giant ship, and then you're like destroying the engines with these bomb Heartless, and then you're getting to like to the core, and then you're destroying that, and then you're chasing them and playing this like shmup type portion, which isn't anywhere else. Yeah. And then after that, you're fighting him for reals on the ship, and then after that, you're actually fighting him for reals in some nobody ether, and that's when things get really real, and you really got to fight and be, you know, do it. You got to kill that Zemnis guy. That's right. I feel like on Critical, especially, it felt the best because there were boss fights that were just a slog on Critical because I just kept on getting murdered, and I had to get that one perfect, well-executed battle and fight against them and make sure I didn't screw up. Whereas the final fights, it was moving at a satisfying pace, and then I got to that last final fight, and that's when things got tough. And that's when I had to, you know, dodge him right, make sure I knew how his moves worked. And I finally got to the part where you deflect all the lasers, and I'm like, yes, I'm here. I'm sitting there tapping triangle for my life because I don't want to screw it up. And I felt like Sora and Riku, you know, just tirelessly blocking every single laser beam, and they couldn't let any of them hit them because he used his dual lightsabers and then summoned lightsaber beams. And then you had to deflect them all, and then he's stunned, and then you go up for that final attack, and then the game does that sound effect. Everything goes into slow motion, and then there's like that white tinge to everything. Yep. Oh, it felt so good.
Trails on everything.
Heck yeah. But that happens for every boss fight.
It's true, and
but it's awesome every time.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to take this then and kind of, this is going to open up a whole rat's nest of things here, but
heck yeah.
In the first game, I felt like there was this very natural progression to how powerful Sora seemed as a person. Like, you start off and you're just kind of running around with a toy sword, whacking stuff, and then you can jump higher halfway through, and then you can start to kind of glide. And by the end of the game, you're like flying through this void fighting this ship, but it feels like that's built upon this progression Sora has experienced. Whereas in 2, I feel like that progression doesn't make as much sense, and I think that's a result of all these different systems that you can take part in the combat, where you have your drive forms and your limits and on and on and on. And how do you guys feel about these? Mostly, I guess it's changes to the combat. Were you feeling like you were just kind of gradually getting better, getting more powerful, or is it this kind of multifaceted thing?
I don't feel like there was an actual comfortable progression to that at all. Okay. I didn't even know that you had to level up limit forms to get to things like the higher jump, to get the dodge and stuff like that. Otherwise, I would have jumped in on that immediately. Yeah. And I mean, out the gate, you're already dipping and diving around people, and it's at the point where it's like, okay, Sora can warp after these sniper bullets and reroute them, and it doesn't feel as though these are things that are like, oh, Sora's getting stronger, he's learning how to use these things. It's like, okay, these are just gameplay mechanics that they're throwing at you. Yeah. And I do think that progression was lost, and it did feel kind of uncomfortable at times.
Christian, what do you think?
Well, I really liked how they handled the progression of the combat system. Initially, after playing it immediately after coming off 1 and Chain of Memories, I was not liking the combat, which was very interesting to me because Kingdom Hearts 2 was my first and favorite.
Yeah.
Well, my first and only, and I liked it a lot. And so I remember having a blast with it. And then I actually went back in the PS2 days to try and play the first one, and I couldn't do it. I was like, oh, this feels bad. I can't do this.
Okay.
But now on these most recent playthroughs, I played through 1 and I really like the combat. And then I played through 2 and it starts out and it's very different. Like you're saying, the camera's pulled out a lot and you don't have a dodge roll anymore. And so you kind of have to block. And so you're the way you have to approach every battle has to be more on the offensive, in the sense that you can no longer just dodge roll out of the way all the time. You have to like go into attacks and actively block them, or you have to attack at the same time in order to reflect it off and then hit them. And that combat system is different in a way that I felt got better as I got more used to it and as the game went on. Like the first couple struggle battles, I was really struggling with the combat system because I was like, why can't I dodge roll? Why can't I do this? I just got to block their attacks and just figure out how that works. But I began to kind of divine a deeper rhythm and how they structure the attacks in such a way that you can successfully block them.
Okay.
So there'll be like salvos of like 3 attacks, but if you do a solid block, that block will maintain throughout that entire salvo if you time the block right. And so I kind of got used to that deeper, or got used to that in particular, and understood that I could actually feasibly block these attacks, and that I could basically didn't have any excuse to not perform in every battle. And all of the disparate mechanics that you're talking about, like the drive forms, the summons, the limit breaks, all that stuff. When I first played through this game, probably the 3 or 4 times I did as a youngin', I probably never went into drive form other than 1 or 2 times when the tutorial told me to.
Yeah.
And I used a summon like once and was like, whoa, what the heck is this? I don't want to do that.
Stitch.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But going back to it and 100%ing the game on normal and then doing the critical playthrough, it required me to dip into some of those mechanics that initially felt just kind of tacked on and felt unnecessary and felt like they were just effort. There was a lot of effort put into these things that could have been placed elsewhere and didn't really add much to the combat. Whereas on critical, I felt like I was exhausting every last resource I possibly could. Like I was putting up a summon just to give me enough MP to barely get by with the boss that I was fighting. And then I would like use the rest of my mana to pop off a cure if I was in a bad situation, or to pop off a limit like Donald's Duck Flare, which can just completely obliterate bosses and get past their revenge values, which is a new thing in the combat system, because now you can get combos off on bosses, but after a certain point, after you've damaged them enough, their revenge value will trigger and then they'll retaliate and you'll be out of the combo. So you you have to play around with that, and there's ways to bypass those revenge values or to reset the revenge values by using clever uses of summons or using combos in an interesting way or using drive forms in an interesting way. And all of that kind of synthesized to make this really complex combat system with a lot of possibilities and options that I really appreciated.
Okay.
And it all came together in such a way towards the end game that I really liked. And I liked getting more access to these abilities, becoming more powerful because of all these abilities that I was getting, and leveling up my drive form so that I was basically flying across the map eventually at the end. And it felt great to just be flying around while in master form, having these like 4 keyblades spinning around. It felt insane. And I really liked it. I felt it had a satisfying curve to it.
Okay. How much of that is from playing on critical, though? Because I found that the combat system for me, because like you said, without dodging and stuff like that, it's very attack heavy. And the way that translated for me on the normal mode was just mashing X a bunch.
Yes.
Without really any kind of repercussions to that.
Yeah, and that is a definite bad thing about negative for Kingdom Hearts 2, is that the combat system doesn't get a chance to really shine until you're playing on those harder difficulties where you really have to use those mechanics to their fullest. Because I was playing through on normal in fights where I could just mash X, take a hit. It's no big deal. I just keep on mashing X. The they turned into me having to, burn a drive form so that I could just heal because I was out of resources. I had no other chance, and I just had to go in one last desperation to try and attack the boss with a drive form. And I felt that the combat was better than 1 because of that as well, because in 1, it was just pop an arrow so that damage is halved, and then whenever you get hit enough, just pop a cure. Whereas here, you only get 1 cure, and then you have to wait for your mana to recharge. Or there's no arrow this time, so you can't just have all damage that you take. Everything is high stakes, and you have to use your resources accordingly.
Christian just sold me on the combat system in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah. That all sounds awesome. It's just, I just feel like so few people are going to experience any of that. But it's cool they put it in there in case you do.
How much of that is just the fact that... Okay, Christian, do you feel that this game doesn't really telegraph the things you can be doing that well?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
I didn't know anything about the drive forms until you two made a video about it. So
that was a fun video.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was getting into by saying that I've played through this game 4 times without digging into any of that because it doesn't really put that stuff to the forefront at all. They'll give you like a tutorial for it, and then it'll just be this little bar that's on your thing, and then you can use it, but you don't have to. And so, that having that higher difficulty to force you to do those things is definitely not the best way to do it. But I appreciated having that critical difficulty to, make you dip into the more complex systems that are at play. And that's why Final Mix is awesome, because the initial Kingdom Hearts 2 did not have critical difficulty.
I want to say, to give them credit, I think they realized that mistake, and that because that Cavern of Remembrance is new, right?
Yes.
And when I hit that, that's when I started digging into the drive form stuff. Not digging into the game itself, maybe, but just going online and looking up what all that meant, because it's forcing you to have, glide leveled up or your double jump and stuff. So I feel like maybe that's their way of steering people towards these systems that maybe the game itself doesn't. Because I was on normal or whatever. I didn't have to go too critical to be pushed into these other systems in that same way. So, and that area is really cool, I thought.
Yeah, that level does gate your progress in interesting ways by just not letting you get up to where you need to go.
Yeah.
But in the same stretch, the game doesn't tell you that it gates your some movement abilities behind your drive forms. So
it sure doesn't.
Thank goodness for the internet.
Yeah. Or Prima strategy guides available at your local GameStop.
Exactly.
It's interesting though, because that means people would have kind of had to, figure this out on their own.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they did. I'm assuming people figured it out. I'm assuming that's how these systems work.
Yeah.
So
if there's something to level up, people are going to level it up, and then they're like, oh, hey, I can glide more. And the puzzle pieces weren't there in 2, huh?
No.
That's crazy. I just think that's crazy, because it's like this whole system, and they're like the collectibles in this game.
Yep.
That's wild.
The treasure chests are also collectibles, though. Kind of.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And they probably have a more noticeable impact on the game, too.
I would say so, yeah. I liked getting the little puzzle pieces and putting the little puzzles together. That was cute.
They were Kingdom Hearts 2's Dalmatians.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the puzzles and the treasures much more than the Trinity markers or whatever.
Yeah.
That were in the first one.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot those existed. Thank you for
Yeah.
Yep. I remember... Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
No, I'm going to agree with Tucker. I
Yeah.
like puzzle pieces and treasure chests way more than I like the little Trinity markers.
I remember being a kid and playing it, Kingdom Hearts 1 on PS2, and being like, what is this weird colored smudge on the floor? Like, is this a glitch? I don't understand.
Yeah, it does look out of place. It's like...
Yeah. Yep, none of that here.
Well, to jarringly switch topics then, how did you guys feel about the Disney World? You know, how this is the meat of the game here. It's like you go to... What is it? Azkaban?
Yep.
What's the
Agrabah?
Agrabah, and then the racist man is there, and that all happens. So how do you feel about the use of Disney here?
I continue to believe that the Disney worlds are almost entirely inconsequential to these games.
Okay.
With the exception of the fact that they provide the meat of the game.
Okay. Quick question. Would you
Yeah.
play an entire game where it's basically that last level and different variations on that, where it has nothing to do with Disney and it's just weird architecture with nobodies and Heartless and stuff in it?
So you mean a Final Fantasy game?
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
Um,
Christian, quick question for you. Are any of these games that?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Nope. Gotta have that Disney in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I
Sorry,
do
Michael.
kind of like it. I will say I like the familiarity to it. I like the fact that we're wrapping Simba or just
Bambi.
insert other character here.
Yeah.
I like that we're wrapping them into this anime nonsense world. It provides like a little bit of an anchor for it, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Simba, I wonder what he's going to be doing in magical anime land where the villains have Sith powers or
Yeah. It's fighting a Force ghost.
I like that idea. I like it. I do. The majority of the worlds though just feel kind of like plot filler. It's like what happens in Mulan Land isn't really going to have an impact on the actual plot. It's just let's have fun in a Disney world and fight some Heartless because
Yeah.
for some reason Maleficent and Pete are here and they think they're the main villains of this story somehow.
Yeah. But in Mulan World, they do the scene from the movie with the avalanche, but it's just him with a bunch of those stupid little flying Heartless swarming over the thing.
I don't like that. I don't think it does a service to the Disney
No.
Disney IPs
No.
at all.
Not at all.
I liked it to some extent. I didn't like that the majority of the game was go back to Disney World and it felt inconsequential. It felt unimportant. In
there's-
some places it felt like I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off a bunch.
That's okay. I was just going to say they recycle it because you have to go back twice, basically, to every world. And it's like, new plot, you get 2 plots per world, but that doesn't make it feel any more consequential.
Right.
Like we're saying. Yeah.
Even they even try to anchor some of the main like you even deal with the organization who are at that point established as the actual main villains in this game
Yeah.
on all those worlds, and it still doesn't feel that important with the exception of maybe the Beast one where you actually kill a member of the organization.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it kind of. At some points it feels kind of frustrating. There are times where I think it's done very, very well, or maybe it's creative and interesting. I love Timeless River.
Yes!
I love that, how they did that.
That
That is
was
so
amazing.
cute. That is creative. The way they used the art style from that as well was so cool.
The sound's all muffled and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
I think that is the golden standard as far as using the Disney IPs and worlds in these games. But
Yep.
but other ones like the Pirates world and
Yeah.
stuff like that, it feels like a gross recreation of some of the Disney properties or some of the Disney worlds and plots.
Yeah.
It feels like you're wasting time because it's as though the actual battle you should be fighting is in that weird empty city with hooded bad guys and with
Yeah.
lightsabers, and it feels wholly divorced from the actual main plot.
Right. Because I brought this up at one point, but in one, it feels like there's this urgency and importance of going to the Disney worlds, even if what happens there doesn't really matter. But in 2, I didn't feel that way. I just felt like I was going there because that's what I have to do at that point in the game, sort of thing.
Yeah, do they set up like a very strong narrative reason you're even going to these worlds?
You have
Is
to
there-
reseal the things, or you do the same thing basically, but it doesn't have that narrative push behind it the way it did in 1.
Do they did they ever give you a reason to actually go back to the worlds plot wise? I feel like I missed it.
there's interference. Like the little chipmunks are like, there's interference, and then they're like, it's coming from place, and then you go there. I don't know, Michael. I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it felt even less important in this one.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of maybe like Timeless River, where it was important to the castle, which is where King Mickey lives. So it's like at least there's a strong character connection to it, and it was creative and kind of fun to see how they played it out. And I think they owned the aesthetic correctly. And I don't think any of the other worlds really own their aesthetics as well as that did.
No. I agree with you. Christian.
Yeah, I can't really defend any of the Disney worlds. What you guys are saying is right. They don't feel very substantial. They do keep you busy, which is good. There's plenty of stuff to do in them. It's not just like Rechain of Memories where it
Same thing.
begins like showing its framework where it's just show up at Disney Place. Okay, now here's Heartless, fight, get to the cutscene room, and then fight, get to the other cutscene room. I felt that they kept things fairly organic. I liked the different ways that they, gave you different encounters, gave you different boss fights. And I also liked how they did interesting things with battles in some of them. So like in the Pirates world, you got to fight the guys in the moonlight, and it's annoying, but you do, and they're weaker to magic because of it for some reason.
Yeah.
Or the Pirates boss is cool too, where you got all the medals, and then you got to put them in the chest to break the curse.
Yeah.
And then it actually becomes vulnerable. That stuff's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I also enjoyed what they did with Hercules World this time around, where it's not just Colosseum, and it's actually like chilling with your Final Fantasy X Bud Orin instead of Waka.
Yeah.
Actually, I agree with that. I liked what they did with the Coliseum World a little more too.
I hated it. I thought it was one of the worst ones. Yeah.
What?
It was just needless, and then the Coliseum was so not what it was in one in a bad way, I felt like, where it's all separated off into weird little challenges, and then... Because in one, it's like, here's my rant, you guys. In the first one, it's like this thing where it builds up, and then by the end, it's this huge gauntlet you have to run through, and there's all these crazy bosses and everything. And in this one, you go to the Coliseum, and you're just in this little room, and it's like, fight the guys, but don't let the timer tick down. And it's like, and you don't get experience or anything. So why are you here? Sorry this is here, but we had to put it in, is how I felt like that whole thing went. And I didn't... The whole thing with Orin, where he's got like a little doll, and it's like, this is, haha, I'm Hades, and I don't sound right, and then...
It was still James Woods, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it just sounded off to me, and I guess Hercules World was one of my least favorites, but it was better than Tron or Pirates, is how I feel about it.
I liked how you got to take things to the underworld, man, and you had to fight your way away from Hades.
It was just a cave. I don't know. It wasn't visually interesting at all to me, so it was just this slog, I felt like. Like, you're in hell, and all it is a cave. I feel like they could have done something else with it.
They had the Hydra fight. I like the Hydra fight.
Hydra's back! Yeah.
I liked I did like having Aura on there. I liked having... I wish these games would dip more into the Final Fantasy stuff that they're pulling from. Because I tend to like it when the Final Fantasy characters are there.
Yeah.
It's just a general rule of thumb. I do think they kind of... With the Roxas stuff, the use of the Final Fantasy characters there was kind of underwhelming, but like...
Yeah.
But like when you get to that middle climax in the game and you're on Hollow Bastion, and there's this big fight going on, and you're like back to back with Cloud and Squall and Tifa, that shit's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I wish they would bring more of those Final Fantasy characters in. So like with Auron, I liked having Auron there. I liked that it wasn't just the important Disney character of the movie you're in. Yeah. I liked it wasn't Hercules. I like it was this Final Fantasy character who I feel like was just playing a generic archetype.
Yeah.
At this point, because I mean he's just
like in the game.
Is that how he is in Final Fantasy X, where he's just like mopey and like, I have sinned in the past and I must atone? Is that?
Well,
Is that how he is in Final Fantasy X, where he's just like mopey and like, I have sinned in the past and I must atone? Is that? Is that how he is in Final Fantasy X, where he's just like mopey and like, I have sinned in the past and I must atone? Is that?
He's like younger here, right? Is my understanding? Like this is a young him.
Oh yeah, I believe you're right.
So I don't know. I don't know, Michael. I'm sorry. Keep going.
But I liked Orin there. I liked that. I do think the Colosseum was weaker. I like the Hydra fight.
Yeah.
I like that they expanded on the Colosseum world.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How did you like? Speaking of Final Fantasy characters, how did you like Aerith's voice actress?
It is worse in Kingdom Hearts 2.
It's the worst possible.
That's true.
Amazing. And they changed Leon. He's not David Boreanaz anymore.
You mean TV's David Boreanaz of Angel fame?
Of Bones fame. That was a huge bummer.
Yeah, actually, kind of. I feel like we spent a lot of the time we were playing Kingdom Hearts 1 together building up the fact that David Boreanaz was in this game.
Because I pictured him in the booth saying these stupid lines and just being like, his hair growing gray because it's just the stupidest thing. But they just got some other guy, so whatever.
Speaking of Final Fantasy characters,
yes.
How do you feel about the Gullwings?
Dumb. It's dumb. It's cute that they got the 10-2 people as like a little group, but otherwise it's like, why are they little fairies and what's going on?
They like the treasure.
They like the treasure.
Yeah. Their story doesn't make a lot of sense. They're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. Why do you care?
Who? What's going on? We're in the Bailey.
Yeah.
They say Bailey a lot, and I think that's cute. So, Michael, this middle fight here.
Yes. Well, someone has to jog my memory. I forgot what the impetus to it was.
Okay, well, there's all this momentum, right, in this game, and then they're like, there's too much momentum in this game. What if we spend all our momentum, and then there's no momentum until the end?
So, right.
That's crazy!
Right, this middle, this... It almost feels like it should be the climax of the game.
Yes.
And then I will say that I feel as though they kind of outdo themselves because they at least match it almost with the actual end of the game. But
okay, yeah.
But it feels like this is what you're building to. It's this huge final battle on Hollow Bastion. I don't necessarily remember the setup to it. I forget what was the impetus for that fight. What Cloud's there for some reason, Tifa's there, but they don't call her Tifa. You find out Ansem's not Ansem. And then you fight 1,000 Heartless, and you're like back to back with all the Final Fantasy characters.
Heck yeah.
You fight the guy with the electric sitar.
Yeah.
He's cool.
There's a lot of things I think to like in this section, though.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it does up a lot of. It takes a lot of the things Kingdom Hearts is good at, and kind of cranks them to some nth degree. Like you're fighting an absurd boss.
Yeah.
The guy in the black robe with the electric sitar who summons like familiars to fight you by playing notes on his guitar or whatever, and
yeah.
You're dealing with, I guess, the high politics of the Kingdom Hearts world. You're fighting like literally 1,000 Heartless in one battle.
Yeah.
You're back to back with all of like these characters that you've established are basically good friends. Like they,
yeah.
I mean, sure they define that by having this little friendship card, but
oh yeah.
But I mean, like you're with Yuffie, who is established as your friend. You're with Squall again. You're with Cloud and Tifa, and it's
Sid.
Is Sid?
Yeah.
Do you fight with Sid?
No, I don't think so. He's hacking the computer or whatever he does.
Yeah, he's got to hack the mainframe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's this conclusion to where you're having the big final anime battle. You're with your buddies. The bad guys who are the bad guys this whole game are actually they have a change of heart and play as the good guys for once and help you escape, and it feels like that's where you were leading. And then after that you do get to this lull where you're going back to Disney Worlds for no apparent reason. I don't know if there was ever a real reason to go back to these places other than Chip and Dale say there's a new episode added here.
Yeah, right. It's like the game is going more.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I accurately described this thing well enough, but yeah, I feel like it's an important piece of Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah. I guess the way I would sum it up is just there's this very organic momentum that's building through the first half of the game. And then after that, I feel like they have to substitute in mechanical like momentum, where it has to basically tell you to go to another world, even though there's no real reason to within the narrative, because they need to push this along after that point.
You have to go sing a song with Ariel.
Yeah, whatever. Simba's insecure about his kingdomhood. That's important.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
But that fight is cool.
Oh, wait, which one?
The big middle one. When I saw, because I saw footage, and I think it was on like XPlay or something, and they gave it 5 out of 5, and they showed that 1,000 Heartless fight. I was like, jaw dropped. I was like, you can't. This is a cutscene. You can't play this. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you're jumping up and grabbing the beam Heartless and then wiping them out dozens at a time.
Yep. Feels good.
Yeah.
Feels really good. I think that sequence did it did what Kingdom Hearts does well, very well.
Yep.
Does that sentence make sense?
I think that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah.
So.
Amen.
Did we want to talk about any of the other?
How'd you guys feel about the gummy ships?
Oh, I like them.
No.
I feel they were a significant improvement over the first gummy ship missions.
Yes.
And I enjoyed them much more as a result.
Sure.
I like the music a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love, my favorite thing about the gummy ships is they put a filter on the voice when you're going out, and it just sounds awesome. Sure, you're going on a mission! And then it's like, and then you're just shooting ships and stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. It is.
I don't like them.
That's totally fair.
I still don't like the gummy ships.
Yeah.
I think I liked them more in the first one, where it felt like a harmless arcade game.
Yeah.
And now that they're attaching like point values and XP values and making them missions and stuff like that, it highlights to me what is. It feels like they're giving too much weight to what's still at its heart just a silly arcade game.
Okay.
And
okay.
And more than that, I don't. It feels like a crummy rail shooter.
It sure does. Not arguing with you there.
So I don't like them, and I feel like I don't like them more because they make them at least seem more important now.
I get what you're saying, but I don't feel like that is like I don't think they're trying to make them more important, because I don't feel they are more important. They're more fleshed out and they're more involved, but they take about the same amount of time, and you don't have to do them any more than you had to do the ones in 1, really.
Not if I want to go for 100%.
Yeah, but there's a ton of terrible gummy ship stuff you have to do in 1 if you want to get that all going.
That's true.
And the gummy ship stuff in 2 is a bit better segregated off into its own thing, whereas in 1 you'd like go to sit and buy gummy ship parts to use and slap on your thing. Yeah. Whereas here, I think it's all just the gummy ship mission stuff is how you get the gummy ship stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What I really appreciate about the gummy ship missions is that they actually, there's a thing in everyone. Like in the first one, it's just kind of, you're flying through space, get to the end. Whereas here, there's like a highway where you're running on, and then there's this giant thing, and you got to shoot out the engines.
The highway is my exception. I love the highway. It felt like that one to me felt like, yeah, this is a crappy arcade rail shooter, but it feels like an arcade rail shooter.
Yeah.
You've got that crazy 80s guitar music in the background, and it's like it's F-Zero, but instead it's a rail shooter, and there are weird faces and all these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it culminates in this really cool last one where it's like these ships everywhere, and you're going inside this fortress and blowing it up from the inside. And I have a soft spot for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, I
can't
mean-
get enough of the Phantom Menace.
Exactly.
I feel like the fact that we're talking about moments that happen in gummy ship stuff already makes it way better than the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah.
That is a fair thing to say.
Okay.
Do we have any other moments we want to touch base on quick? Things that were good, things that were especially bad.
That's mean. Skateboarding's sick. I love skateboarding, dude.
Heck
Do a
yeah.
360 kickflip.
I like that they tried a musical, and I think it failed spectacularly.
Yeah. Michael, just don't press it when it's Sebastian. Press it when it's Ariel. It's so simple. But also timing.
Yeah. And the timing doesn't line up with the music timing.
No.
It's
Not-
bad.
My tempo.
Oh my god.
Oh, jeez. Tron World exists. Sora tickles Tron.
It sure does. Wait, we skipped over Donald singing.
Oh.
That was my favorite part of the game.
That's beautiful.
My God.
Oh lord. I loved the Beauty and the Beast fight where you're in the ballroom and the boss is the ballroom. I thought that
Oh.
was super cool.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Slamming that chandelier down, riding
Yeah.
it around.
That was cool.
I love the music unique to Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
Heck yeah, man.
I would like to put that out there. That that orchestral version of Simple and Clean really welled me up.
Okay. Okay.
I
Really great battle music.
Yes.
Yep.
The Roxas fight, I think, was fantastic, and that
Yeah.
cutscene afterwards, it did make me shed a little tear
Oh.
Yeah.
where
And-
Axel says goodbye to Roxas.
And that fight was not in 2 originally, right? Is my
Correct.
understanding? That is so crazy.
Yeah, actually.
That's like one of the best parts of the game. And it's like,
That's awesome.
Okay. Oh, hey, you know what's dumb? You know what's really dumb? Let's just have it sometimes when you try to do a drive form, you just turn into crappy drive form and you have no control over it, and then you just
Yeah.
have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then you have to go get your drive form orbs
Yeah.
back. I know you were trying to train them, but
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
Yep. And I hope you don't have that Keyblade equipped that makes you go into negative Sora form all the time.
I
'Cause
sure
had that
did.
equipped. Yeah. I was going for wisdom form grinding and I didn't realize that I had that Keyblade equipped. And I'm like, what the heck is the RNG is broken? There's something wrong here. But no, it's
Christian, that was my exact experience last night. Yay!
fine. Yay.
Well, we should just kind of get everybody's final thoughts here. Michael, let's start with you.
Kingdom Hearts is a mess. Kingdom Hearts 2 is still a mess like Kingdom Hearts 1, but its highs are higher, and I freaking love this game.
Okay. I like it. Short and sweet.
Yep.
To the
It's
point.
I feel like we touched base on all the things that I loved about it, but
Okay.
I really liked it, and I'm really excited going forward. Oh!
Oh.
Oh!
Oh.
Something stupid, really quick, before
Yes.
we go back into conclusions.
Okay.
Riku!
Yes, his outfit or what? Or just the whole thing?
When he's fucking handsome for...
It's kind of dumb, huh?
When I played Kingdom Hearts 2 for the first time as like a little kid, I was so confused. I had no idea what was happening. I was like, I
was
guess we're
confused
okay with
now.
the bad guy now.
Something good, though. Christopher Lee is the actual handsome.
Yeah.
That was cool, yeah.
He's firing the beam up at Kingdom Hearts.
It runs on dreams. Mickey.
One cannot control their heart. Or, I don't even know what he said.
They try so hard with that whole thing just to make
They
it
do.
like have
Makes
gravity to it and everything.
Oh, yeah. No. But, okay. Okay. I think I'm good.
Okay.
My final thoughts are that I think this is kind of a flawed game like the other Kingdom Hearts. But at the end of the day, it was a positive experience, and I'll probably remember this more than I'll remember the first run through Kingdom Hearts 1.
That's
I-
totally fair. Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think I liked it more.
Okay. Okay. Christian, let's save you for last. How about?
Sure.
Okay. I'm this game was a game. and I liked it in the same way I liked 1. And I appreciate what this game does in trying to actually explain what's going on, because there were times in this game where someone just explained something, which is not something that happened in the first game. And I was like, awesome. And I think the highs are higher. I think Timeless River beats out anything in the first game as far as like Disney stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess just the act of playing this game just didn't, and I understand so much of this is tied into nostalgia, but I just don't feel the urge to ever play through like any of these Disney levels again. It's an experience I had, but it's not something I would ever feel the need to return to outside of trophy hunting, let's say. Whereas the first one is just this thing I can return to, and it's comforting. And sure, Monstro is terrible, but I'll still play through it just because I like the way it sounds and looks. And I guess just the final thing I would say then is just that we've talked a lot about how 1 had this really satisfying combat where things just explode, and it's just satisfying. And for me, the combat in 2 is so different, and I'll try my hand at critical and see what happens, but I just didn't get that same satisfaction in 2 of just being able to just run through enemies forever and feel like it was fun. So yeah. Popcorn Christian.
So I love Kingdom Hearts 2, unfortunately, Tucker, because
yeah.
I love it the same way I like the first one, where I feel like I could just play it forever. I feel like I could play it again and again, and I've played it more times than I can count, and I still have an urge to go back and play it again, which is the same way I left Kingdom Hearts 1 after playing it through the third time. And I feel like it's just this fascinating, like mesmerizing combination of like deep, complex RPG progression in an action framework and just ridiculous amounts of polish in a way that lets me overlook any possible negatives I have with it and be able to go back to it again and again.
I totally understand. So, I think this is all going to hinge basically on, does this go above Kingdom Hearts 1 or not?
Yeah.
And it sounds like it will, with Tucker being the dissenting opinion here. I think 1 is maybe not the better game, but it's the game I would rank higher.
Yeah.
So, but I totally understand. So, where would you guys put Kingdom Hearts 2 then?
Do you want my ceiling?
Yes.
Yes.
Above Valkyria Chronicles.
Ooh.
Okay.
Nice.
I can't speak to Rystar or Sonic CD, but I think this is one of the few games I might have, at the end of the day, I might look back on more fondly than VC1.
Wow.
So, theoretically, are we talking about putting this above Rystar? Is that what's happening here?
Sure.
That is a discussion for you and Christian to have, because I've never played Rystar.
Yeah. Christian, it would feel strange to me to put this at the top of the list.
Yeah.
But I would understand where that's coming from. Because I think I like Rystar and Sonic CD more than you do, is my understanding.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Michael, you're saying you would put this above Valkyria Chronicles? Or around it?
Around it. I'm wrestling with that idea still, but I would feel comfortable with it above or below that. I do think it goes above Kingdom Hearts 1.
Okay.
I'm very comfortable with that.
So for me, and this should not be binding for you guys, but what I would, if we are accepting it above 1, I would put it between Sonic CD and Valkyria Chronicles is where I would put it out of that ranking.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say that Kingdom Hearts 2 is a better game than Rystar or Sonic CD. I feel like, yeah, that's a very good spot for it, somewhere around Valkyria Chronicles.
Okay. I just don't want to be... If you guys both feel like this is like top tier stuff, I don't want to be like, well, no, because Sonic CD is time travel and you something it's an hour long. So.
The music's rad and the boss fight music is crazy.
And Rystar's a sun.
Exactly.
Rystar's crazy. The birds sing, Michael. I don't know how many times I have to tell people this. Okay, so we're on the brink here. Where?
Yep.
What?
So close. Does it go above or below Valkyria Chronicles? I feel like that's the consensus here.
Is this the discussion we're having, whether or not it goes above or below Valkyria Chronicles?
Yeah. That's why you're here, JRPG consultant.
I'm getting some resistance from Tucker.
Yes, you are.
Well, no, because I just don't want to. I don't want you guys to feel like Rystar and Sonic CD are sacred just because I like them, because it's not. That's not what the list is.
I agree with you, Tucker. I agree that Rystar and Sonic CD are better packages.
Okay.
I'm worried about ranking it high right now. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm worried at the moment I'm coming off a high. I'm worried that I just beat this game. I beat the boss fight, the final boss fight. And the final boss fight is maybe not the greatest fight, but it sure is a hell of a spectacle, and I really love that. So I'm at this moment where it's like, oh my god, Kingdom Hearts 2 is just like, While Valkyria Chronicles, for me, is this more... It's this game that maybe feels... is just an all-around really good, solid experience, and that maybe at the end of the day, I'll still think, oh, Valkyria Chronicles is my favorite game of all time, and I don't know if I'd think that about Kingdom Hearts 2 in like a month or two.
Yeah.
And
Michael,
that's...
you're describing the struggle. This is not unique.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you wake up a day later to the list and you're like, oh no,
Yeah, what were we
happened?
thinking?
Christian, where are you?
I'm totally fine putting it below Valkyria Chronicles. I feel like that's a very good spot, and that makes this game very, very good. Better than a lot of great games out there that we've played and socketed.
Okay.
Tucker, where are you? Valkyria Chronicles versus Kingdom Hearts 2.
If we are putting it above Kingdom Hearts 1, I feel like it should go above Valkyria Chronicles, is where I'm...
Interesting.
Would you be able to explain that a bit?
I think they're both very flawed games, and I get why Valkyria Chronicles is so cool, and I get why you like it so much, but 2 was built on this fondness I have for 1, and I just maybe found it more interesting, even if it was clumsy in a lot of things. I got into the systems a lot more. I got into the lore, I guess, a lot more. Whereas, like, I guess just for an example, the post-game for me in Valkyria Chronicles 1 was extremely simple because all you do is break the game and then run through stuff as a scout. Whereas in 2, there's like this wealth of content, and maybe not all of it's great, but it had like this extra dungeon to go through that I thought was really cool, and I engaged with Kingdom Hearts 2 maybe on a level I didn't engage Valkyria Chronicles on, and for me, that would put it above that.
That is a fair statement. And I think I'm leaning to putting it above Valkyria Chronicles.
I'm down with that.
Should we just take a final yay or nay? We're going to put it between Sonic CD and Valkyria Chronicles?
Okay.
I guess, Christian, do you feel strongly about it going below Valkyria Chronicles, I guess?
No, I do not. No, not in any meaningful way.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we locking it in? Is that...
Is this it?
My final vote is above Valkyria Chronicles.
It happened.
That's it. It's over. Kingdom Hearts 2 above Kingdom Hearts 1.